heard from him yet.
It's supposed to turn colder in New York also.
Yeah, not this cold.
So it might go down to the teens in the
Oh, never. All right, we are on Daf Lamed Hammer base. Lamed Hammer base. Yeah, Hammer base. Okay, we're up to the top line. Umar Rabbi Avo, the third word from the land. Now we said yesterday that that there's halacha that we wanted to say that Rabbi Yochanan holds that if something, the truth is, let's start from the bottom Lamed Hammer off, the last line. Ravo b'shem Rabbi Yochanan, Ravo sanem Rabbi Yochanan, v'hu shetei mitzuda prusa lefonov. If the net is open in front of you, in other words, the net is extended, so then even stuff which isn't yet caught in the net, you can make kadosh. It's a davar shlo b'olam, but l'maisa, since it's going to imminently happen, things are going to get caught, so you already have what's considered as if it's enough jurisdiction over stuff which will get caught in the net that you can make a kadosh from now. Now, there's that's one version, and now we have another version. It seems to argue, though it's a little bit difficult because it's the same opinions. Rabbi Avo and then Rabbi Yochanan. The other, it says here, "Ma Rabbi Avo b'sher Yochanan, af l'kodesh lo kitchu." That for kodesh also, it doesn't become kodesh, and it sounds like that. A line before we said that when the net is extended, it becomes kadosh. And now we're saying that it does become kadosh. So it seems to be, although I'm not sure exactly what I'm saying is correct, but it seems to be two versions named Rabbi Yochanan. I saw the Yerushalmi wants to say that it depends what he specified. That if he specified that which comes into my net today, then that'll become kadosh, because that's imminent. But he says, "Find anything which comes into my net as long as my net is extended," because that's the way they used to trap animals, by extending nets throughout the forest, right, and having animals get caught. So that's not considered to be imminent enough. So Avo said that where the net is spread, it works. That's where the net is spread. And he said, "What if my net catches today?" And where it says it doesn't work, that's where he says, whatever my net catches, even beyond today, that's not imminent enough that it's considered to be, as we called yesterday, avida da'asu, that it's on its way that you can make a kadosh. Okay, so it depends on the extent. Depends what he says. So it's
time specific.
Time specific, right, within the next 24 hours. So says the Gemara, Lama. And now instead of b'pnei, the Shari Torah Yisrael puts in Lama lo Amar. Why did he say a machlokes or a Meri Yochanan Sadler? So you see a machlokes or a Meri Yochanan Sadler in our Mishnah. In our Mishnah, a Meri Yochanan Sadler argued about when somebody consecrates the handiwork of his wife, whether it's kodesh or not, and that's also davar shelo b'olam. But since it's going to happen, so it's machlokes or be Meri Rabbi Yochanan Sadler. So the same thing which should be with the net. Right? What's the difference? So it says the Gemara. Now to the Gillian of Prime takes of the word ober. It says Shani hektish mitzuya she'ena mitzuya. No, that things will come into the net is not so prevalent. And again, the Yerushalmi shows a distinction. Things will come into the net imminently, yes, within the next 24 hours, but to be makadish, makdish, things which will come into the net, even beyond that, that's not considered to be imminent enough. You can't be makdish that.
No, there's no time frame with the wife.
Right, because that's considered to be like an animal coming into your net. The wife will work. So therefore, that's a basic distinction. Okay, so the net we can distinguish between time,
specific
and long term. Right. But not by a wife's handiwork. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yaakov Baracha. Rabbi Yossi says Rabbi Yaakov Baracha. I remember the Avis Normi that used to say, at you, Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Yirmiyah Lakish, Matani Hekdesh She'ena Mitzuya. I'm sorry, Hekdesh Mitzuda She'ena Mitzuya. Who's the one who said that Hekdesh of the net, which is not prevalent, is nonetheless a machlokas Rabbi Yochanan and Sandler. But we just said that it's not a machlokas according to Rabbi Avon and Rabbi Yochanan. Hekdesh Mitzuda is definitely not kodesh because it's not so prevalent. But I remember that there was somebody who said that the Rishim and Lakish held that it was a machlokas between Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yochanan, and Sandler. So therefore, which one is it? So it says more heavy de'un. It must be that there are various different opinions according to Rabbi Shimon Lakish. Now, that's because why do we say the various different opinions? So Gideon Ephraim makes it clear that on Amud Aleph we said that Rish Lakish holds that by a case where the Rish Lakish holds that the machloket Shira Meir Rabbi Yochanan Sadler is about Ma'aseh Adeh during her lifetime. But Ma'aseh Adeh Achar Misa, whatever profits is still realized after death, that is definitely not kodesh. And Rabbi Yochanan holds on that even Ma'aseh Adeh can realize profits after her death, that could still be a machlokas. Okay? So Rish Lakish obviously held that Ma'aseh Adeh realizing profits after death is not considered to be imminent in any way, shape, or form. So therefore, how can Rabbi Shimon Lakish have said, and therefore it's not subject to machlokas? So how can Rabbi Shimon Lakish have said that there is a machlokas about the net? The net should not be any more imminent and prevalent than the profits realized by her handiwork after her death. Now, I'm not sure exactly why not.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's the spur.
Yeah, the Chor, they're not similar. But he's saying, in other words, I would say that it's more prevalent that as stuff comes up in your net, then your wife's handiwork produces profits after death. But I guess not. I guess if she produced carpets, let's say, so after death you can still sell her carpets for the same price that they sold during her lifetime, right? So therefore that's reasonably imminent. So therefore, Rish Lakish held that by Ma'aseh Adeh Achar Misa, whatever's left over from her handiwork after death, there's no machlokas. You definitely can't be makdish it. So therefore, you should also hold here by the hekdesh mitzuda that the stuff which comes up in the net definitely is not kodesh as well. So therefore, the Gemara says it must be that there are two opinions named Rish Lakish. One opinion is that Rish Lakish held that things which are quasi-imminent are not imminent, and there was no machlokas. And the other opinion is that things which are quasi-imminent may be considered imminent, and that's machlokas Rabbi Yochanan, Sandler, Rabbi Meir.
The thing I can think of is that if you want to put a philosophical thing on it, spiritual thing, that a person, a handiwork of a living person can be made kodosh, hektish.
Yeah.
But if the person is dead already, so...
Nah. It's organic. Boo. Okay, nice try though. Okay, says more further. Rabbi Yirmiyah boy. Rabbi Yirmiyah asked, Hamakdish, so he makes stuff called Makdish in Ma'aseh Avdo. This is an interesting case. His Makdish is his Evet's handiwork. V'yad Tzayod, and he was a hunter. What's Allah? Now the Gideon Ephraim said, the Pnei Moshe says, hunter, shmunter, wherever he is, the question is generally about Evet. Just happen to pick a case where he's a hunter. But the Gideon, that's the Pnei Moshe. The Gideon Ephraim learns it's integral to the question. In other words, the Gemara knew for sure that that Ma'aseh Adayim of your Evet you can be makdish. But you can.
Does it make a difference every Evet?
No, it makes no difference. But the question was, what about what he hunts? Because hunting is not so simple that anything is going to happen, right? That's what it's saying, hekdesh mitzuda, right? So
it's
that
not like a net.
What?
It's not like a net.
It's even worse than a net, right?
Yeah, it's not.
Right. The thing is, it probably is. You know what? I'm not sure about that though. It's
unless he's a professional hunter.
Yeah, he's a trapper.
So
he's a trapper. So Gideon Ephraim says, but nevertheless, it's a notch down than something where he's making carpets, which is definite. So therefore, that's what we're asked about hunters. But again, the Pnei Moshe says it doesn't make a difference. We just picked hunter out of the hat. So, and it's not clear if Gideon Ephraim is correct that the question is case specific on hunters. It's not clear how the Gemara's resolution addresses that specific case. Let's start out from here. Hamakdish says after somebody who consecrates his slave himself. He gives a slave, and obviously it's Eved Knani. He gives us the Beis HaMikdash. Who Kodesh? The Eved Knani is holy. For Maitzi Yoda, whatever the slave produces are chulin. Right? Hekdesh can sell, if he's a carpet weaver, so Hekdesh can sell his carpets to chulin and make money off of them. Okay? Because Hekdesh Bedek Abayis can own the Eved, but it doesn't mean everything the Eved produces is Kodesh. I don't remember this in the Bavli. I'm willing to bet that this is not in the Bavli. But it's interesting dichotomy. Because we're saying that the Eved himself might be Kodesh, but his handiwork is not Kodesh. It doesn't extend to his hands. So that's a fascinating thing. So says Gemara, now what about Maisi De'avdo? What about if you consecrate your slave's handiwork? So in fact, who Chulin, then the Eved himself is Chulin, who Maisi Yota, but whatever he produces is Hektish, reverse. Rabbi Yochanan says, Hakotea Yidei Avdo Shel Chaver, somebody who cuts off his friend. So we see even this that you can be Makdish Maisi De'avdo. Again, it doesn't have to do with the hunter, but you see you can be Makdish the handiwork of your slave. Rabbi Yochanan, Hakotea Yidei Avdo Shel Chaver, somebody cuts off his friend's Eved's hand. So Rabbo, the master of the slave, Notel Nisko gets the damages, Tsar, the anguish, the boshto, the embarrassment, the gummo, the damage. In other words, everything goes to the master, because the master owns him, so it's his property which is damaged. File law, what about the poor slave who's now an amputee? Tough. Yetziv Hispanis Pitstokum, he should get stokum, because he gets no payments. Says Maraki says, what time did we learn? Hamakdish, it should be Maisi a day. Avdo, not Es Avdo. But somebody who consecrates his Eved, Yetziv Hulu Parnosim Itoichon. He's still, the Eved deducts whatever he needs to for his own upkeep. Vashar Kodesh, only the rest of it's Kodesh. And what's the difference between the case number one, where we expect the Eved to go out, where the Eved underwent this accident, where we expect the Eved to go out and beg, and here case number two, where we say that the Eved was made Kodesh, that he gets to keep for himself whatever minimal existence he needs. So Amar Bar Mela said, I'll tell you. Interesting distinction. Lo daito shiamus. Where a slave undergoes an accident, there's no das involved, right? They're payments which the Torah mandates. There's no das involved. I didn't intend to do X, Y, Z to the Eved, and intend to leave something over, an event occurred, an accident occurred, the Torah mandates payments, the payments have to go to whoever the Torah mandates should get them. There's no room for das b'nei adam there. There's no intent issue. But when I'm makdish my slave's handiwork, there, since I'm being makdish, there's a human being's intent involved in the deed which is occurring, so therefore my intent can be to be makdish only his handiwork beyond what he needs to sustain himself. Do you see that distinction? I think it's a good one. Let me see if I can make it understood.
I understand the first part about everything is set, cut and dried. There's a formula involved for purchase and tsar.
Right, and it has to go to the master. But when I'm giving an Eved, when I'm making Eved Hekdesh, right? Yeah. So then I, who's making the Eved Hekdesh, or his handiwork Hekdesh...
So it's a judgment call how much the Eved is...
It's my judgment call as the Makdish. So there my compassion can actually be a factor. I can say I'm only being Makdish that his handiwork above and beyond what he needs to sustain himself. And we say that is the das. Okay? When I cut off somebody's hand, it's nothing to do with my das. Yeah, right? It's a formula. But here, where I'm being makdish my Eved's handiwork, so there I say that my das plays a role. My das was mistama, that I only be makdish that's beyond the basics. Only be makdish that stuff beyond which he needs for his own personal use.
Okay, well, the value of the handiwork is what you get on the market. So,
but he's not selling his slave's handiwork. He's being makdish his slave's handiwork to Beis HaMikdash.
So it's who determines what value that is?
That's everything. Yeah, well, it's everything. It doesn't have to be given a tangible value. All it is that we leave over for him what he needs in order to sustain himself.
So it's more vague or fungible.
Right. It's more fungible. Right. That's basically it. Now, here the Gemara is missing whole block here. The Pnei Moshe brings down some stuff here which Gemara doesn't have. It says here just Yosim min Avodim. So if you look at Pnei Moshe, the last of the wide lines, the fifth line down. Chaser kan. You see that? It's missing here. V'gosina kama the Gers Perek HaChovel. You have to, like it says, Perek HaChovel Ba'it Amuda. That's in Baba Kama in the Yerushalmi. Rabbi Hila b'shem Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Hila said name Rabbi Yochanan, Hamakdish Ma'aseh De'atzmo was somebody who consecrates his own handiwork. Kulan Kodesh. The whole thing is Kodesh. As opposed to his Evet. If his Makdish is Evet's handiwork, it's only that which is above and beyond the Evet's basic needs, right? But his Makdish, his own handiwork, the whole thing is Kodesh, right?
He can support himself. He doesn't need to.
What?
He can support
No! He can't support himself. Everything he does now is for Hekdesh. How is he going to support himself?
No, I mean, he doesn't have to deduct what it would require for him to support himself.
No, that's bad. That's a question. Why not? Why doesn't he?
Because he's an entrepreneur.
How do you know? No, but he can't do anything. Even if he's an entrepreneur now, any money he makes should go to Hekdesh. No, he can keep nothing for himself. On the contrary, that's Gemara's question. By an Eved, he leaves to the Eved enough to sustain himself. By himself, he doesn't, right? So the Chazar. The Chazar V'Tana goes back and brings down Hamakdish Ma'aseh De'avdo. Well, we just learned that Hamakdish Ma'aseh De'avdo, somebody consecrates his Eved's handiwork. Yotzilo man parasosa. The Eved takes out his own parasosa of a Shar Kodesh. So Hochat Amar Shar Kodesh, by the Eved, you say only the remainder is Kodesh after his own needs. Lochem by the Yisrael Atomar Kulo Kodesh. You say the whole thing is Kodesh. Why the difference? Rabbi Achra said, "Mitzum in Yisrael farnes b'nei chorin Yerushalmi min Avodim." Jews are going to support free people more than slaves. In other words, if he goes and begs after having consecrated his entire own handiwork, he'll make more money than if he than his Eved will. So therefore, when he consecrates his Eved's handiwork, he only consecrates his Eved's handiwork above and beyond the basic needs. When he consecrates his own handiwork, he consecrates his own handiwork, including his basic needs. Because the Eved won't be able to beg as effectively, he won't get a good green card. He won't be able to beg as effectively as he himself will be able to beg. Okay? So, says the Gemara, one second. So back to the Gemara itself. So lo kein Amar Rabbi Yochanan, doesn't Rabbi Yochanan say Akotei Yedei Avdo Shel Chavei? We just had this, right? Somebody cuts off his friend's hand. Noitel Nisko B'Tzaro, his friend's slave's hand. Noitel Nisko, the master takes the Nezek, the Tsar, the Boshes, the Pgam. V'lo Yetzev Yispartis Minat Stoko, Yispartis Mitstoko. So then the other guy, as slave, has to go out and make tzedakah. So what's the difference, right? That's not the question. The question is, but you just said Avodim can't effectively beg, so it's not fair. How's he going to survive, right? So says more. The more we next says more. Avodim Kesuvos Misharvach said, "Mitzumi Yisrael Farnes Kitin." Am Yisrael is commanded to sustain amputees afilu avodim. Which I think means that Am Yisrael has rachmanis on amputees. In other words, if it's an Eved who looks able-bodied, and he can make Ma'aseh Yadayim, so nobody's going to support him. So therefore, when you makdish him with beyond, you makdish his handiwork, you makdish him beyond his basic needs. Yisrael, even if he looks able-bodied, people will support him. So therefore, when he's makdish his own handiwork, he's makdish his entire handiwork. When it comes to amputees, Am Yisrael supports amputees regardless of whether they're slaves or bnei chorin, and therefore that amputee gets nothing. All of the nezek tsar, if he's an Eved, Boshes Pgam, goes to his master. Okay? Because he'll be supported by tzedakah. Says the Gemara, now, despite our whole sugya, Midas Chasidus is that of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Ma'adahava Ochel, everything, very famous Gemara, although I don't think it's in the Bavli. Kol Ma'adahava Ochel, anything he ate, Yoav Lavde, he would give also to a slave to eat. It's not talking about a Jewish slave, it's talking about a non-Jewish slave, an Eved Kanani. Why? He said about his slave, Hello, mi beten osani oseu. But in the stomach of my master, my creator, he was created. They were erected in the same womb. Now, not specifically the same womb, of course, but it means that he's a human being and I'm a human being, so therefore I have to give him whatever I enjoy as well.
Didn't we have in a Bali that the owner has to make sure that a slave eats?
That's by Eved Ivri. This is even by Eved Kanani. That's the Chiddush here. Okay? The shift of gears. Boy, we're running on empty tonight and everybody else is running on empty. That's tucker. These are malachas a woman does for herself. For her husband, excuse me. She's responsible to grind for him, to bake for him, to do laundry for him, to cook, to nurse her child, to make the beds, to work with wool. If she gives him if she brings in with her dowry one slave, she doesn't grind, nor does she have to bake, nor does she have to launder. If she has two slaves, she no longer has to cook, nor does she have to nurse. If she has three slaves, she doesn't make the beds. She has four slaves, she sits in a fancy chair all day, in an easy chair. Even if she has 100 slaves, he can compel her to work with wool. Why is that? Idleness because leads a person to lustful thoughts and improper thoughts. If somebody makes an oath that his wife may not do work, Yotzi must divorce her, eating ksuva, and give her ksuva. A person is idle leads him to insanity. So therefore, idleness is a bad thing. Tani, we learned. Shiva Gufe Mulachos Moda. They enumerated 7 general types of work. Vashar, the rest, didn't have to mention them. There are obviously many other types, but they fall into these general categories. Minikos Beno, she has to nurse her child. It sounds like only her son. It sounds like not twins. Now, the Pnei Moshe and the Coordinator learned that that's actually a statement. She only has to do one child. For a twin, the husband has to go hire a nursemaid. She only has to do one at a time. But I don't think that that's the pshat. I think it's read like an astonishment. It only says her son. What is it going to teach us? What do you think she doesn't have two twins? If she has twins, she has two twins too. The lama. So rather, why Omar Beno? Why does it say her son? Shlotonik ben chaverta. If she has a co-wife, a tzora, so her husband can't compel her to nurse the tzora's child. Gadein detani, like we learned in a brayso, Eino ish kofeif as ishto. A man may not force his wife. Shlotonik beno shel chavero to nurse his friend's son. Nor may a wife compel her husband to allow her Shetani ben Chaver to nurse her friend's daughter. Period. What if she took an oath not to breastfeed? Bishami says, look, she took an oath. So therefore we remove her nipple from his mouth. That's tough luck. Basil says we compel her to nurse. Because it's, obviously, I don't know, Pikuach Nefesh exactly, but she's Pikuach Nefesh, it's not actually. What I meant to say is she's Meshubad. She's under lien to do that. She can't take an oath to get out of a lien. It's like saying, I owe you $1,000, but I take an oath not to pay you. I can't make you suffer through my oath. So therefore, she has to nurse the kid regardless. Okay? Is that clear?
Yeah, well, can't you say that's Sakonis Mepashos?
No, because there might be another nursemaid around. They had a lot of wet nurses. So it's honest, even if it's not Sakonis Mepashos.
Can't be made for the other.
Well, assuming she didn't, right? We didn't, right? Maybe he can, but we're talking about where he didn't. Okay? Nisgarsha. What if the husband divorced the wife? So that we don't make her nurse the child. When is this true? If he has already come accustomed to her, he doesn't know her already. But if he knew her already, we compel her, and we pay her because she's no longer married to the guy, so she's not under lien to nurse the kid, right?
She has custody.
Even though she's mother. No, she doesn't get custody. Halach, it's not so simple that mothers get custody. Generally in halach we say that the sons get, the fathers get the sons, and the mothers get the daughter. So she might not have custody. So anyway, she doesn't have to feed the kids, so rather we have to pay her for it, right? And so, we compel her to nurse for nursing less harm, we pay her for it. She tells us not to nurse her kid. How long does it take for a child to be accustomed to a certain nurse, in this case his mother, and therefore after the amount of time, we compel her to nurse. Rav said 3 months. Vavas Rabbi Zira mistakabe. Rabbi Zira looked at Rabbi Yirmiyah in astonishment. Why look at me in astonishment? Neighbor loch min Yiddish. Well, did they say? Is it because they said to you, or because is it because somebody said to you that which Shmuel said? Shmuel said after 3 days already the child knows whose its mother is and who its nursemaid is. Shmuel is unique and follows this line of reasoning. Because Shmuel said, Chachim ana Shmuel said, I know, I recognize the nurse, the midwife who gave birth to, who birthed me. Now, this is very interesting. Gemara, the next couple of lines, you see that Chazal had massive powers of retention and memory. They say if you hypnotize somebody, then they can remember their birth. You ever hear that? Yeah. So here you see that actually Chazal were capable of doing this themselves. So obviously indicates greatness of Chazal. As again, Shmuel said, I know the nursemaid, I know the midwife who gave birth to me. Rabbi Shimon Levi, the Gazli, I know the Moel who was Malmi. I remember my bris milah. I remember the women who came together with my mother to help her in the birthing process. All these chazal, such great, complete retention, they remembered all these things of their extremely early childhood. Okay? Says Tani. We learned the Bryce, and this is also in the Bible. The child continues to nurse up to 24 months after it's born. The child who nurses after that is like nursing a repugnant animal. It's already Lezer's opinion says after that it's already he's too old to nurse. And he can continue to nurse even 4 or 5 years. Piresh, once however he splits from his mother, even within those 4 or 5 years, so you don't bring him back to nurse again. What's considered to be piresh? What's going to be separating, weaning, I guess is the proper English word, that he doesn't go back. Rabbi Yaakov Rachel and Rabbi Yirmiyah, but Shem Ra said, Meislays 24 hours. Rabbi Chizkiah Avov Shem B'Yeshua Ben Levi said not 24 hours. Shlosha Yomi Meislays, 72 hours. Tani Meislays, we learned in one price that Taka says 24 hours. Rabbi Chizkiah Rabbah said, Rabbi Chizkiah the Great said, by Medvar, when is that true? Is Machapir Shetok Purio. When the kid was healthy and stopped for 24 hours to nurse. So then he can't start again. But if he stopped nursing because he was sick, then we could give him, we allow him to go back immediately. If it's not a case of danger, we allow him to go back immediately when he becomes well. And if there was a sarkonas, now sarkonas the functions involved, even if he split for several days, machzirno, so we put him back afterwards to his mother to nurse, obviously because of the sakana involved. Okay?
No, there's no sakana. Why can't he go back to the nurse after 24 hours?
Well, it's because it wasn't intentional, because he only split from his mother, was weaned temporarily because he was sick.
No, I mean if he wasn't sick.
No, then after 24 hours, that's it.
Why?
Because it's already weaned. The older the kid gets, because of this concept of chionik sheket. In other words, you can't continue nursing forever. At some point, it becomes forbidden.
So
right?
Once he's weaned, you can't.
Right. It's only the Rabbanan, it's not the Raisa.
Yeah.
Right, but it's Rabbanan. Rabbanan said, wean again like forever.
It dries out, but it could still, not 24 hours, it's still.
Right. But it's a combination, not just of milk drying up, but of Chazal's, saying that after a certain age, we can't allow nursing. It's too ridiculous. Okay. So back to the concept of bringing in slaves into marriage. Ichnisa. It's not just if she brought in slaves. Even if she was suitable to bring in slaves. Now it's a big machlokas here, what that means. Rashi says it means if she had she brought a large enough dowry to buy slaves. So then, as if she brought the slave, she doesn't have to do all the work. Right? The Rad says even if she was poor, but her family was a noble family, and they didn't work, they hired servants to do work. So even if she didn't bring enough money to pay for servants, nevertheless, she does have to do that amount of work which a wife would do in the absence of servants as described in our Mishnah. Okay? Because during a time like that, which showed Ishto Loimo, his wife goes up with him in social status. It doesn't go down when she marries him in social status. However, that's only by a wife. Almana Uvanea, a widow and her children, after the death of the husband, they go down in status. They have to tighten their belts. Avalo, they don't go up in status. Hapolim, workers who work for a person like steady laborers. Only if the person gets rich, they go up as well with him. Avol loyerdin, they never go down. You never give them cuts. Okay. Abbas, it's a daughter who, at her father's death, was fixed into the right to get 1/10 of his property as a dowry. So that goes by that point in time. Even if they got richer or poorer, that 10th is measured as it was at the time of his death. Period. Okay? Now ask more of a tachni shivu chol dvareh. Very interesting question. Chol dvareh. We're going to ask, listen, imagine say if you have one servant, so and so much. 2 servants, she gets off so and so much work. 3 servants, more work. 4 servants, she gets off all together. So it says, I understand. What's she by herself? She's one, right? If there were no shvachos, she'd have to do all the things herself, right? So if there is one shivcha, let's put all the work that she would have had to do on the shivcha. You're saying you need up to 4 servants in order to exempt her from certain lines of work, right? Why should that be? Exempt her from all the work as long as she has one shivcha.
Yeah, but the Mishnah said it's no good for her to be exempt.
No, I'm saying except for those symbolic labors. Okay, that's the word's question, right? So it says tomorrow. Again, v'tachni shivcha l'chol dvarim. One shivcha. Arei chiba yuda minei chayim shel shivcha. So it says, what's the word? Something legislation. I'm thinking of. No, it's like worker protection. I'm not getting the right word. But even.
Well, they don't want to make her work too much.
Right. Whatever it's called.
Fair to work.
Yeah. So to protect her. Those are like union laws or whatever laws. That's one answer. I'm right, Boone. Rabun said another answer. Should be zoyon. Because the stomach mission is degrading. That's why they allowed the shivcha to do it. So that's an interesting thing. He's saying the truth is that really the wife should have to do everything, regardless of any shvachos there are. Let the shvachos go work on the fields. It's only that we exempt her successively from more and more things, not because there's not other work to do in the house, but because these things are degrading to her, right? So therefore we take them off her back. So we take off each time a bare minimum. Besides, since the wife should be working for her husband, so therefore we take off only a little bit, gradually going to less and less degrading labor until we have full scholarship. But we certainly would encourage the wife to work as much as possible. Okay, the only thing we take away is the stuff which has to do with bizoy. Amar, and it should be Rabbi Yossi, according to Shar Torah Yisrael, top of Lam Simon Alf. Another reason, Shein Derech Ishal Yosheves B'Teil B'Sov Beiso. We simply can't allow it to be Yosheves B'Atel. So therefore, we always make her do work, and even though the more servants, the less work she has to do, but we never take it away altogether.
Play mahjong all day.
Right, which we don't want her to do. Ravuna Amar, feels that what they do Winston Towers all day. All right, I guess. Ravuna Amar.
They watch soap operas.
It's really sad. All right. Ravuna Martilu Chnisla Meir Shvachos, even if she gets 100 slaves, Koifel Lasus Dvarim Shel Yochid, things which have to do with intimate things, she has to do for him. Yochid means like Yechidus, right? What are they? Sachas Lo Gufo, to anoint his body with oils, Merchetzes Lo is Raglov, and wash his feet. See what wise are in the good old days, right? Mosegas was supposed to pour his cup. Lama. Now the Yerushalmi answers an interesting question. Says, why does she do it? Because she has to do it for him. It doesn't pass to give a female maidservant to wash the master's feet, right? Or stuff like that. What's nafkamina? If he has male servants. You're going to say it's because you're going to have a female maidservant do the intimate things. So then he's got female slaves, so that won't be a problem, right? So since it doesn't say that, have a lace time, it should be da ella. Mishum Shichayves Lamasi, because since Mishnah doesn't differentiate between Avodim and Shvachos, it must be that she's required to do this for him. Now, it's interesting thing. Ritbaz points out here a principle in Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi has a principle, and the Ritbaz proves it from here and other cases. Whenever the case would change because of the reason, the Mishnah must bring down the reason which would change the case. If the Mishnah does not bring down the reason, the case changing reason, then it must be the Yerushalmi doesn't hold that reason. For example, here, if the reason was because it's not proper for shvachas to do these intimate things, and therefore avodim could, so then the Mishnah should have told us something about the difference between shvachas and avodim, and it doesn't. Just says one shvachas, two shvachas, etc. So it must be that the Mishnah, this Yerushalmi speaking, does not hold of that case-changing logic, and therefore the Yerushalmi, the Mishnah is learning that the reason why she has to do these bottom line work, she has to do this bottom line work for him is because it's special intimate details, right? In which case, whether there's shvachos or avodim, still, whether there's shvachos or avodim involved, still, the bottom line she has to do it. Okay? Did I make myself clear on that one? Okay? So basically, let me reiterate, with Yerushalmi feels there ever a reason would change the case, the Mishnah should have brought it if it applies. Rabbi Abutima, B'tziporin, and Tzipori boy come Raimona. That's Raimona. Lo mistar mishum shecheves, though, doesn't make sense, since we just said that she has to do these things because she's required to do it for her. Says Mara Malos, they said, yeah, I hold her way as well. Period. Now here's a vav. It says Vitani, but really it's a separate issue. Tani Kane, we learned concerning our Mishnah. Kaifel Lasus B'Temer, he still compels her to work with wool. Avalo B'Pishtam, but not by linen. You know why? I mean, Nation Masrav gives her bad breath. I guess because they stick the flax or the linen into their mouth, and it gives her bad breath.
It's always associated with dirty water.
Yeah. something like that. And also, Mishabekes is Safios. It causes the blisters on the lips because they have to, always draw the linen tight. Okay.
By the way, nowhere in the Gemara does it say that the men might wash their own feet.
No, Chas v'Shalom. It's not for the women to do. Okay, Amadis Ishto Mitasha Shemita, somebody who takes an oath that he's going to not provide his wife with marital relations. The Shaman says he can do for up to 2 weeks. If he goes beyond that, he's got to divorce her. The Sunni Shabbos is only 1 week. The word is going to say we learned that from. Students can go out to learn Torah without their wife's permission for up to 30 days, but not more than that. Apollonian workers go out to work without the wife's permission. Shabbos achas, 1 week and not more than that. The regularity with which one has to have marital relations mentioned in Torah. Hatayolim, day traders, people independently wealthy, or people who don't have a real job. V'choyom every day. Hapoyalim, workers, time b'Shabbos twice a week. Hachamorim, donkey drivers, echel b'Shabbos once a week. Hagamolim, camel drivers, echel shoshim once every 30 days. Saponim, sailors, echel shish chodashim once every 6 months. Divrei Rabbi Elazar. B'Shamri shtei Shabbos. B'Shamri says he can stay away from her for up to 2 weeks. Why is that? Kimei lead us nekeba, because the maximum time allowable in the Torah. Of course, nowadays after a woman gives birth until she stops bleeding, we answer her. But the Torah holds after 14 days she can go back to her husband. So actually, the maximum amount of time a woman who's not ill with some sort of ziva malady stays away from her husband is 14 days. Since that's the case, so therefore that's the maximum. May later zocher community does like the amount of time for a male to the amount of time she's telling after gives birth to a male, or the amount of time where she's not needed the rights. Of course, the rabbanan she's needed for long because she has to wait shivim nakim, but the rights she should only need her for 7 days. So Beis Hillel holds that it's not the 14 days because. We go after the more prevalent time period in the Torah, not the 14, but the 7. Okay, students go out to learn Torah without permission from their wives. Bias is euphemism from their wives. Shloshim Yom, for 30 days. But if they get permission from their wives, remember what we had last night, the Koilo principle, right? So if they get reshus from the wives, so gesundheit afilu kama. In the old days in Europe, it used to be that actually, Koilo people used to leave their wives home by their in-laws, and they used to go learn for 6 months in a shot. They used to come home for Yom Tov during the 19th century. So,
Rabbi Akiva did the same thing.
Right, Akiva, right. The short Shemi is it said, "Vayishalchem levanona." Shlomo sent his workers to Lebanon. Aseres 11 chodesh, 10,000 a month. Now, Rabbi Avir said, Kodesh Baruch gave precedence, found more precious procreation. My time, why? Because it says about the workers of Shlomo, Chodesh Bilvanim, they're 1 month on duty in Lebanon, cutting down cedar trees. And they would come home for 2 months. So 1 month on, 2 months off, because they should be able to come home and be with their wives. Similarly, although not precisely the same thing, Rabbi Amar concerning workers of David HaMelech, his soldiers, it says, on active duty, they would circulate or cycle from month to month. 1 month on active duty, 1 month off duty. So the same idea, although not as liberal as Shlomo HaMelech, the same idea. Period. So obviously, plural rule is an important thing. It says more further. Here you say,
stay away.
Yeah, I just forgot what is going on. 1 second. Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's a concept. It says, first it says, Hapolim Shabbos Achas, right? They can stay away for a week, right? And then it says, Hapolim Shtayim Shabbos, they have to have relations twice a week. So how can they stay a week if they have to have relations twice a week, right? So it says, more time back Kapara, Hapolim Yetzim Lachler Shlur B'Shus Batem Shabbos Achas. It means they can leave home for a week at a time. That they're allowed to do, but when they're home, they have to have relations with their wife twice a week. Okay, so that's what it means. They're two separate things. They leave home for a week at a time, but if they're home, they have to have relations twice a week. Says Marona Mura B'Torah. Now, the word Ona, it's written in the Torah. This is a very interesting conversation about that. You probably never had this conversation. It says in the Torah in Parashas Shmot, Sheirok Susava Ona Saw. There are three things: She'er, Ksus, and Ono. So the conventional understanding is She'er is food, Ksus is clothing, and Ono is marital relations. And those are the three basic components of a marriage. In the Bible, there's some discussion of that, but in the Yerushalmi, it's much more discussion. It says, well, what's Ono? It says in the Torah. There are those who learn She'er Zederech Eretz. She'er is actual marital relations. Ono Zemazon, that's food. We are psukim for that. Istari Tanya, there are those who say Ona is a derech eretz, Ona is marital relations, and She'er Zemazon is food, as we learn. Madamar She'er is a derech eretz. He says She'er refers to Bia, to marital relations, because it says Ishi shall close She'er b'soro, lo sikhu l'gal servo, right? So it says, don't come close to any of your relatives, be Megal Erbo. So the word share in that context has to do with marital, with relations. Forbidden relations, but with relations, right? Ona Zoamos, and why is Ona is money, food? It says, Vayan Chave Ariveka. Hashem afflicted you and famished you. So Ona is the affliction associated with famine, right? Mana here says, She'er Zamazon. The ways he learned, because Pasuk, which says in Tehillim, it says there, "V'am teraleim kafar share." Hashem caused the Bnei Yisrael in the desert to have like dirt, dust coming upon them, their food which they got them on. Onazu do their cheretz. How do you know Onas do their cheretz with marital relations? Because it says imtanis benosai. Lavan said to Yaakov when they took leave, he said, "Make sure not to afflict my daughters." And that affliction seems to be referring to not depriving them of proper marital relations. Okay? Says Mara, Rabbi Lezber Yaakov, Pata Kroi, Lezber Yaakov learned the book like this. She'era Ksusasa, what does She'era Ksusa mean? She'tea Ksus Lefi HaSher. You learn that neither word is talking about food, She'er is not talking about food or about marital relations. What it means is that her garment should be according to her status. Shloitin law as a yaldo shouldn't give clothes meant for a young girl to an old maid, to an old woman. Law as askena nor clothes meant for an old woman. Lialdo, it's not fair. Also, ksusav on a son, the clothes should also be according to the season. Shouldn't give her summer clothing in the winter, and not winter clothing, but kites in the summer. So he learns everything in the post is really focused on clothing. And share means that it should be according to the type of person. And ona means according to the season. So from here we see that the focus of a woman is clothing. Just kidding. Says more further. Not really, just kidding. But name it, says more further. So if that's the case, don't put in clothing. How do we know she gets food? That which doesn't sustain her soul, clothing. And he can't deprive her of it. Stuff which does sustain her soul, food. Is not kavachomer. Okay, fine. So it's kavachomer. How do we know that he has to have relations with her? Also kavachomer. If stuff which before she got married to this guy, Mishor Rishona from the before the Nisuin, actually, before the Nisuin, from the time of Erusin. Yerushalmi Kesuvos. No, that's not what it means. I forgot. It means like this. Start what she was getting before she was married. Right? No, here we're talking about clothing, right? She needed clothing before she got married. She was getting it from somewhere, right? So he has to provide to her after they get married, right? It's the thing for which he did get married, meaning for marital relations. He certainly is not allowed to provide for lo koshken. Certainly is not allowed to provide for that right. So stuff which she would be having anyway can't deprive her. Certainly it's stuff she can't have anyway, which she got married before they can't deprive her of. Okay, says more further. How do we know the concept of ona? Of how many times a week, how many times a year you have to have relations? So it says more, from the gift given by Yaakov to Esav in Parshas Vayishlach, Lomad Rabbi Lazar. Sheshilok derech, he sent them according to I'll say standards. The standards of Derech Eretz in the animal kingdom. And Rashi explains this in Chumash. Says there, Easy Masayim Kyoshim Esrim. For 200 female goats, he sent 20 male goats. So each goat was in charge of 10 women. Because the goats, they don't work so hard, so they can, play around more. Okay? Chai Lasora. Similarly, Rechel Masayim, 200 sheep, V'yelim Masayim with 20 rams, Chaylasor 1 for 10. Gemali Medikos nursing camels, Ubeneim and their sons, but Chazal Dashan Bonehem, their builders, meaning their husbands or their mates. Shloshim 30. So why are they called Beneim? Some camels somehow have relations in a modest way. Feel appears more custom. So Pasuk doesn't say that it was actually their mates. So here actually it's a ratio of, I forget what the ratio is by camels. Maybe it's 1 to 1 because they do a lot of work. But I don't remember it's not clear what the ratio is here. Anyway, Paros Arboim Parim Asara, to 40 cows and 10 bulls, Chal Arba, 1 to 4, you don't like because they work harder. Asona says Asara, the female donkeys 20 and males 10. Chalatray 1 to 2. They're really hard workers. So therefore, the harder you work, the less you have to have relations with your wife. Okay? Less. Because the more you work, the less capable you are of having relations. As we see here. The more idle you are, the more capable you are. Rabbi Yirmiyah asked, why are they not like the Tayolim? They don't work, let them have relations every day, right? Says more, it doesn't make sense to say, but rather kasfun. They are actually, it'd be anything, I would say they're like gathers, meaning like the sailors. Once every 6 months, because they work hard. From morning to night, they're learning, right? It's interesting, different perspective. Like the Tayolim, and what's the day, and like the sailors. So Rav says later on we're going to have a mission that says she eats with her husband from Friday night to Friday night. That's a nice way of saying that the relations of Talmid Chachamim are Friday nights. And we will stop here for today.
The reason why the sailors only once every 6 months is because that's when they come into port.
Right, it's when they come into port. She's lucky if they don't bring back any diseases.